Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Chassidus in the morning. Heichaltzu, 15 minutes to hopefully change your life. So, we were discussing in the last few days two different approaches in serving Hashem. One of them is through simcha, to recognizing how Hashem creates the world and how Hashem brings it into existence from yesh ma'ayin. And the other one is through the recognizing the Ein Sof of Hashem. And then we talked about, on the other hand, the serving Hashem through humility and recognizing that the truth of the matter is, and like we talked about the story about Al-Chassid, that the truth of the matter is how great the Eibishter is, Hashem is, and anything that we do is like, in truth, like in the truth, Shabbat truth, so to speak, is not anything like comparable, and that will humble us to appreciating how, in a certain sense, insignificant we are. But together with that Hashem has all these things that He needs from us to do, and we can go do it. Now, Perek Yudalid. The preceding two chapters describe two modes of divine service. One emphasizing joy. We did that. Why is this? Let's see. Hine. Yeah, we're going to discuss what we said before. Hine. Bishtei oifane avodah nisgaras. These two types of avodah we talked about before. Actually, yos bechinas yeshus v'gasus. So even in these two types of avodah that we talked about, there still can be yeshus and gasus and costness. The first way that we talked about, which is serving Hashem through simcha, for sure there can be yeshus involved. Why? Why can there be yeshus when you're serving Hashem through simcha? You're happy. What's the problem? And remember, yeshus is the feeling of separateness, of a separate entity by God. So where's the yeshus that can be approached? Because there's someone that's loving. I love God. Automatically, when you say that, you're making it's very likely that you're putting yourself as a separate feeling of separateness from God. That there's me and God. There's two separate things. This happiness and this excitement is felt within you. So too with the love and the ratzei, like we talked about before, the yearning. When you're happy, or when you're the pursuit of happiness is coming from you and from what you need. Remember, you being separated from God totally, like meaning you the feeling of this me is my own world and this God. Because remember, the ultimate, the bittul is not that I don't exist, but my whole existence is together with God. Whereas here the yeshus is I have existence outside of God. I exist, I have my own life, I have my own things, and I also connect to God. I also do godly things, but I have my own separate things. So he's saying, so what I'm saying here is that even when you're serving Hashem through simcha, that you're happy to serve Hashem and you're thinking about God and you want to connect to God, that there's also an aspect of yeshus in the fact that it's all about you. It can be that it's I'm serving God. I want to be happy. So it's mixed into this love of Hashem, and happiness for Hashem is your own love and self-happiness. Now, and we're going to bring about this, because it's an important point to understand. I explain that elsewhere at length. On page 108 in the brackets. We have to figure out answers. You know that the Ava and the Simcha should be in a way of bittul. Avodas Aaron HaKohen Gadol, Bahalas Haneres. This was Aaron when he brought up the menorah, when he lit up the menorah. Lahamshir b'chinas chachma b'midos, to draw down the chachma, which we said before, is bittul into the midos, into the emotions. You know that the midah is the emotion should come with the aspect of bittul, meaning they should feel emotions to godliness and godliness, but not as a separate entity, but as part of God. The idea is like this. Yeah. Da bittul hu mitzad ha'or ha'elyon bittul. In order to be able to, remember, we're talking about in order to be able to serve God and have simcha in serving God. But in order to make sure that simcha is not just about myself, and it's also about, and it's more so about my connection to God and about godliness. So the way to do that is through bittul. The bittul hu mitzad ha'or ha'elyon. The bittul comes from this higher light. The in is very well explained before. When we think about the oneness and awesomeness of God, the godly light shines within us. And this godly light that shines within us, this can cause us to have a bittul. That's what it should do. But in order for that to happen, we have to prepare ourselves for it. The hinek asher achana samakabel hu lahargish es hatoiv es hatuv tam v'harimus v'aflos ein soif. So when we set ourselves up that we should be able to feel the goodness and the wondrousness and exaltedness of the infinite light of God, so mispar b'navsher b'china simcha dveikus ha'ava, then you'll have this cleaving and this love for God. But for this to happen, you need to have in order for that to happen, meaning that can happen by itself, so to speak, from your actions. But in order for that to be received by us, we have to prepare ourselves for this, which is to feel the God in that by itself. Then it'll affect within us a bittul. And afterwards, afterwards, when he feels the goodness, and then he get affected by the happiness, and you put yourself aside, and this is all a bracket. But what he's saying is like this, and it's an important thing to understand. What we're saying is that, and this is a fundamental, we sort of arranged about this on Friday a little bit after the shiur, that the point here, that when we say bittul, and I might say this many times because it's a very important thing to realize, it's not saying that we have to become a nobody. Bittul is saying that we have to appreciate our connection to God, and so we don't feel ourselves as a nothing, we feel ourselves as godly. Yashus is we feel, like we said before, as I'm separated from God. There's me and there's God. And that's what he's saying here. That you can even have love for God, and you can even have a love for Torah mitzvahs, and wanting to have that love, wanting to have that connection, and serving God through that, but it could all be self-serving. It's about that feeling that I'm looking to get. And that's just why that when you run after gashmias, like let's say eat something that tastes very good, if you'll notice, it never sort of satisfies. It feels good, but it's not. You never get content. It's not like I had, it's not like I had one piece of cake and I'm good. I don't need any more. I'm perfectly fine for the rest of the day. You're always running after it, because it's gashmis, and gashmis is not satisfying. Because what you're really looking for in life is ruchnius, is spirituality, is connection to God. So therefore, when it comes to the yeshus, you're always running for this love. I'm always trying to get the love. Whereas when it comes from spirituality, from ruchnius, so then you might want more, but you're also content. You feel like whole. And this is sort of what he's saying. That it's important to realize this. It's important to realize that even though you're trying to serve God, if you're running around to serve God to fill your void, and that's really the only reason, so you always it's filling the void of the yeshus, of this separate feeling. I feel separated from God. I need to get closer. But if you don't jump the step to, it's about God. Essentially, it's about my connection to God, not about my own self, like serving myself. So then you'll always be missing something. And he's saying in these brackets, in order for that to happen, to actually receive it, is you have to pay yourself for it. You can't just, you can even do, if you just do Torah mitzvahs, but you don't pay yourself, then just a lot will come in. Like we said, the bit will come, but it won't hold itself. Yeah. Continuation on 110. You see, that's what he says just before. Since the person's goal is not his own satisfaction, but rather oneness with God, even when his emotions are aroused by godly lights, he'll still feel bittul. But if it's about your satisfaction, so then I'm feeling good. Just like when you eat something, it feels good for those 5 seconds, and it'll feel good. Like my lacking is being filled. My bucket is being filled. But if it's about connection to God and oneness with God, so then you'll still have the bittul. Because once you're filled, if he comes from the wrong place, when it's filled, I'm good, and I can go back to being my separate existence, me and God. Whereas when it's about oneness with God, even when I'm so to speak filled, I just feel the oneness. I still have the bittul. However, also the second type of avodah we talked about before on Friday, which is serving God through humility, recognizing how distant we are from God, and even the emes that we would serve Hashem, even at Tzaddik Gomer, serving Hashem, is still lacking in not that what he's doing is lacking, but in the reality of the situation is lacking. Just like a baby giving a painting to Michelangelo, as much as he might like and appreciate it, but in reality, this baby's painting is it doesn't mean anything in comparison to him. Even though the serving Hashem with this bittul, which is the humility we talked about, recognizing this distance, even though generally it's a level of bittul, it's a bittul ayesh, meaning you still exist, but you're nullified. But nevertheless, even in that, seemingly, which is a place to avoid, it's all that humility. So where's the yeshus involved? It's when he feels it, he feels himself, even when he's bitter, even when we're bitter about the situation, but it's very much self-centered. Like, I am distant from God. I'm not, it's like when people, it's like when your people look to do something wrong and they're sorry. Sometimes, a lot of time, what happens, you did something wrong, is that when you're sorry, you focus on yourself. You're like, I'm sorry that I did something wrong, and it becomes very much about you. Even though you have the bitterness, you're not happy with the situation, and but you're focusing so much about yourself. And this is what he's saying, that even though you have the purpose of the feeling of this bitterness over the situation, it's not so much about you, it's about your connection to God. It's about God. It's refocusing on God. It's like I talked about before, like we says in Parak Chaf Vav of Tanya near the end, that even you did the Averis Chamuris, even in severe sins, he says you have to tell yourself now's not the time, and you set yourself for auspicious times, like a Tikkun Kriya Shema, and at that time you think about Hashem whom you've sinned against. That's what he says over there. So even the bitterness, you have a situation, it's not meant to be focused. Oh, I'm so low, I'm so far, and me. It's not so much about that. It's much about this God and how distant from God I am, and I want to be much closer to that. And therefore, this shiftless, this lowness, this humility is not so true. But you're not being truly like humble. Or your bitterness is not a true bitterness, but it's not coming from the want to be close to God as much as thinking so much about how low you are and how distant you are. The Zubrachenkeit is nit kein amitis. The brokenness is not really true. It's not really and true by him this way. Losing his self-concern entirely. So he's not. That's also what's happening. We have to stop here. I'll continue tomorrow. Very interesting. So basically, what we're saying is that even when it comes to serving God with simcha, we have to be careful that we're not, when we're serving Hashem through simcha, we have to be careful that it's not just about our own filling our own void. You say, I feel the lacking that I'm distant from God, so I want to feel that lacking because it's about me. It's not my feeling. But the true bittul, it's not about me, but it's about the oneness with God. And that's what we're meant to be doing this world. Dir b'tachteinim is a dwelling place for God here. Is making God feel at home, feeling very comfortable, feeling oneness. And even when you're serving God through this level of bittul, through a level of meriras, bitterness, which is recognizing how distant you are, which seemingly, how would there be yeshus there? But we said the yeshus is there because it could be there because you're feeling that I want to be closer to God and I'm missing and I'm lacking and become self-centered again. And the purpose of it is not to be self-centered. It's all about, it's God-centric, centered around God. That God, so that the distance in God and I is very far. And I want to get closer, not because I want to fill my needs, because this is how it's meant to be, and I want and I should be over there. It's a deep idea, but to be continued tomorrow.